Down said, huh? It's a football podcast with Tom, Cody, and Sam. Hello and welcome to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm here co-hosting with Sam Betlin and Cody Hollis. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to get the podcast with me as reigning champion. So very happy to be here.
I had made a conscious effort that I was hoping no one would bring that up yet. And 15 seconds in, you already brought it up. Great.
Yeah.
Figure you got to get the shameless plug, but not even shameless.
No shame at all.
No shame at all, just pride. Codes, how are you, man?
Well, I mean, the trophy got taken away from me, so not great, but I'm here. I'm making it.
Is there a point that you get over that though? Like, is there a point? Because you lost it about a month and a half ago. Is there like a gradient that suggests that you're like, oh yeah, I can accept it. Sam has it, or is it just like until you get it back, you just hate Sam?
When I keep seeing Sam hold it up, no, I don't get over it. It's like I get over it when I don't remember it, and then when I see it, I get upset by it. It's like I know it's deserved, but I guess I can find some comfort in the fact that he hasn't won two yet, like some of us.
It's true. And Cody, you did kind of win a trophy this year.
I did. I won the right to take a test.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, what is your projected date again? April something? 23rd?
April 17th at 8 a.m. at Champlain Park High School. Me and Adam will be there. We're going to be all out in the parking lot, social distancing with our liqueurs of choice in the parking lot. And then I think we're having a post ACT party as well. So should be a lot of fun.
This is an official public service announcement.
I think that's also going to be the owners' meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe.
I was thinking we should do it that day. I'll open it up to like voting on Facebook at some point here, but I think that would work out pretty well and be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. When Cody and Adam are just incredibly exhausted and drunk from the ACT.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was so funny trying to sign up for it because they kept asking me a ton of questions. I know we already told Sam a little bit about this, but they kept asking us questions like, what occupation would you like to go into? What colleges would you like us to send your test to? And I'm just like, I bet you I'm going to go into finance. And
it's kind of because don't they use those to try to target you with emails from colleges, and like it's strictly like an advertising thing, isn't it?
They also just use them to see where you want to send them to. So schools that you're interested in, you can send them your ACT scores as well. Maybe just for the hell of it, I should just send a bunch of schools my ACT score.
Yeah, now's the time to go to Harvard, Cody.
Yeah. They'd look at this and they'd be like, who the fuck is this guy?
He says he wants to study fantasy football? What?
He can't even get past science.
Oh, good shit. Well, that would be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that, and it's only a couple months away. So we'll be in the middle of baseball and drinking and getting to laugh at you guys when you guys get like a 2.
Oh, you think I'll get that high?
Cheers. Well, let's move on to talking about so we normally during the regular season we talked about our fantasy football thought for each week. So now this is the final podcast until maybe a couple months from now. We'll do one based off of the draft results and then upcoming draft. But let's talk about, starting with Sam, let's just reference our favorite or our fantasy football thought from 2020 as a whole.
From 2020 as a whole, huh? Okay, let's go with CMC is dust. It's a bit unfortunate for me, but CMC only played 3 weeks this year, showing once again that running backs get injured all the time, basically after the age of 23. So you probably shouldn't invest heavily in running backs.
Hmm.
But moving forward, do you really? So this is where it becomes a meme, right? Because is this really a hashtag CMC is dust, or is this just like a oh shit CMC was dust, and he's gonna
Yeah,
fully recover?
kind of in between. I mean, I think he had 3 separate injuries too, which is even more concerning.
Considering,
But if I was doing a redraft league today, I would still take CMC #1 overall. So I think he'll bounce back, but there's way more concern than there was a year ago. I think his total value shifted like an entire first, in my opinion.
Cody, what do you think?
Well, as a recipient of that, I was very happy to sell him when I did. I actually think he's still. I agree with Sam. I think he maybe lost a first in value, but not much more than that. I mean, he's still CMC. I actually think he's going to come back and he's going to be fine. That's my opinion, but I don't foresee any reasons why he wouldn't be okay. And also, you compare it to any other running back. To me, there's always that injury risk, anyways, with every other running back. That occurs. It's like, can Derrick Henry sustain 30 carries a game always? I mean, look at Saquon. Saquon can't stay healthy either, and he's still ranked #2 as far as running back. So I don't know. I kind of take it more with a let's see how it goes forward.
Yeah, you guys are both wrong. CMC is dust. It will always be dust. That is his permanent state. And I still outline based off of my criteria that I will not redefine on this podcast.
Oh no.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like hard not to be concerned, especially, and we talked about this a bit before the podcast, but there is some concern with where he might be going. Like anytime you introduce a new team into that mix too, it's just like I could not have even foreseen that type of dust creation. But that's huge. Like, oh man, he could go to a team where he could drop down to being like strictly based off of usage. He could go to a team where he's no longer like usage wise an RB1,
You don't think? Well, I'm assuming you're referring to him going to the Texans. You don't think he'd still have the usage of an RB1 in Texans?
I don't.
With the Texans?
I think his situation in Carolina was unique to almost every team in the NFL. Is my hypothesis.
I think he's proven at this point that wherever he goes, he'll actually get the work. I do think it'll impact him a lot. And I think if he goes to the Texans, he's not the clear-cut #1. But to me, he's still in the tier of any of the running backs like Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley.
Sure. I just can't wait to blow him away when he's on the dust of my doorstep.
I look forward to it.
I'm sure you're used to blowing.
Nice, getting in the zinger. So he's zinging, he's zanging. But what is his thought from 2020, Coach?
Biggity banging. Mine was actually that we were able to have a normal season with COVID. Like, I was fully fearful that we were going to not have, we were going to get about halfway, and then we're going to be like, oh, this is kind of a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. But it really was the fact that COVID really didn't feel like it played a little role, but it really didn't play that big of a role in this season. And that's kind of my 2020 fantasy football takeaway.
Yeah, I suppose other than like the few cancellations of game not, I guess they all got postponed. Other than that, we had a pretty good system in place for replacing them. And to be honest, I don't think I'll look back at this as a COVID year.
No.
Like I think it might be in the past, looking back at it, it'll be one of those things where we'll say, wait, was 2020 the COVID year? Like, oh yeah, I guess it was. Shit, it doesn't even seem like it. Whereas for baseball, that completely ravaged the sport.
Yeah, we completely lost that season.
What's my 2020 thought? Other than sheer disappointment that Sam did win, I was kind of hoping that the variance that is possible in all fantasy sports would, like the variant god would just take over and say, not today. But that was not the case. Sam took it over. I guess I was really happy with the diversity of quality of teams. Like there's a good range of 1 through 8 was just really strong, even more than last year. That was actually a highlight from last year's analysis too, but it even more strengthened itself as far as how many teams were actually competitive. And I'm hoping that only continues. And I think part of that is just the nature of football, but also Superflex to me added that element where it's possible in the draft as a bad team, quote unquote, to get even more value out of the draft. So do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the league was at a really good spot this year. I think it's always good to have 2 to 3 teams that are in full rebuild. And to be honest, I feel a little bit for Fowler. He went all in and kind of failed. But other than that, there were really a lot of good competitive teams, and I think that was really fun.
Yeah, I think now that we can look at it 2020 hindsight, I think I'm fair to say that the Kenyon Drake trade straight up for Saquon Barkley might be the worst trade we've ever seen in that from a 2020 hindsight
Yeah.
perspective.
Yep, I agree.
Both value coupling and results oriented. Yeah. Which is really unfortunate.
Yep.
That's actually, like, to me, that's almost worthy of saying like a 2020 low light. Like
Yeah.
I was pulling for Fowler so hard. I don't even know him, but he just
I agree. I respect the trade, but didn't pan out.
it's too bad.
Yeah. So
Well,
that was something. Sorry, before we move on. So it's just so funny because at the beginning of the season, we were just talking about Fowler and how we're like, we think he's going to have a really, maybe not this year, but we think he's going to have a really good team next year, maybe then for a couple of years because he's got building blocks like DJ Chark and DK Metcalf and Saquon Barkley. And now it's like you look at his team and it's just, I don't know what he's going to do. So I think he has to trade Aaron Jones and DK Metcalf, or am I wrong?
Yeah, you got to go into a full multi-year rebuild. Maybe not DK Metcalf and just build around him, but I would say every other player on his team I would trade that's over the age of like 22.
yeah, you can't trade Ryan Suckup, man. I disagree with you.
Of
That's a keystone.
course.
Yeah, definitely the thing that does make me sad about Dynasty. That is an example of that. Just because you want to see people that go all in succeed.
Yeah, but I mean, even in his position, this is, in my opinion, probably the worst like total market value I've seen on a team since we've started playing. But if he goes all in, and assuming he has some draft picks in the next few years, it's probably like a 3-year rebuild compared to 1 or 2 that we've seen before. So not the end of the world if he does it right, but it'll take a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Well, in that same vein, actually, we already retired. We already put to sleep our little boy Ben Fowler on a pretty sad pillow of tears. But we wanted to continue that effort because we had retired, slept, or forcefully made people sleep the bottom 6 teams that had been eliminated. But we never actually did a podcast in between the second round of playoffs and the championship. So now is the time to continue that discussion and do a full recap of the top 4 teams that in order of finishing. And I'm sad to say that I was the 4th team. I came in 4th place. I lost the 3rd place game to Jake O'Brien. But before that, I had lost the semifinals to Sam, who went on to win the championship. Spoiler alert. Oops. So 4th place. I'm not going to say anything because it's my team for now. Maybe I'll say something after you guys do. But what's the recap of my team? I mean, 4th place.
So
Oh,
real
good.
quick, I can go into the scores from those couple of weeks too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but you got pretty unlucky with your matchup against me in the week 14 semifinals. I beat you 209 to 185. We had the highest 2 points. Well, we had more points than the 3rd and 4th team in the playoffs. So that was a bit unfortunate. And then the 3rd place game was a nail biter too. But now, Cody, I'll let you take over with your analysis of his team.
Oh, I was just gonna say to kind of stay within the same vein of the putting you to sleep, Tom. What I would say your team was this year is you're in a dream, you wake up and realize you're in said dream. And right before you're able to choose what you want to do in your dream, knowing it's a dream with no consequences, you wake up. That's exactly what happened to your team, unfortunately. You got so close, but we just couldn't get you there, which made me sad. But at least your team's, in my opinion, still really good. I mean, you have a ton of great young wide receivers that are just going to keep carrying you. TJ Hawkinson, to me, took the next step this year and looks like he'll probably be a top 5 or, top 8 at least tight end going forward. Running backs are still, Zeke didn't have a great year. And then Fournette with Tampa Bay, it was kind of a bummer, the fact that he split carries with Rojo, who you also own. So it's like, okay, which one do you play? But overall, I want to say your team's in good position still going forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should be another top 3 team next year, probably. I think, honestly, to take a step forward, your receivers are solid. No one's going to argue that. I think out of Rojo, Leonard Fournette, Zeke, and throwing in A.J. Dillon, because I think he has really high potential, I think you need 2 top 15 running backs to truly make a run at it, which all those guys have the potential to do if they get the carries.
I agree. And that's kind of I've already done some thinking going to the draft. You did not touch on the quarterback situation, though. Unfortunately, I wish I could say my only issue is running back. I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily, it's a big issue because like Zeke is probably fine for another year, even though he is aging. But quarterback is actually a bigger issue for my team at IMO, especially with reports about Ben Roethlisberger and that they're like the Steelers aren't actively coming out and saying that he's their quarterback.
Really?
And yeah, there have been some reports. I wonder if they have it on here. Basically, like he's saying he wants to be the starter for sure, but like it seems like the Steelers are not emphatically. They basically said like they're looking at other options, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like they're considering other options essentially.
That's kind of stupid, I think.
I think
I don't
so,
know.
too.
I actually think that's a really good decision by them. I don't think Big Ben's that good anymore, especially watching him against that playoff game against Cleveland. He is not the same quarterback, and he has a ton of weapons. I think it's actually kind of a good time for them to try to move forward a little bit away from him. But again, if he's going to say he's going to be back, then I think it's just worth starting. I think you owe it to him to start him in this franchise. He's won you 2 Super Bowls. Like, it is what it is, I guess. I don't know.
I thought you were talking about me.
I thought you were talking about Tom's team too. I was like, oh, I didn't know Tom owed him anything.
Oh no! Sorry, I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about how the Steelers, to me, could possibly just owe Big Ben another year of starting for what he's done for their organization. Tom doesn't know what shit.
Righteous, and you will start Ben Roethlisberger.
Tom, you owe him this. He got you to the playoffs.
I thought he played fine. Didn't they start 11-0? Given it's on the back of their defense, but like, I don't know. I don't know how you can't bring him back as the Steelers. But yeah, Tom, overall for your team, I do agree. If he's done, like if he's not a starter, your quarterbacks have serious issues. But really, who would you put in? T. Higgins probably. What's the gap in points per game between T. Higgins and Ben Roethlisberger at Superflex?
Yeah,
3 or 4. It definitely makes a difference. You always want to start a quarterback, but like with your depth, it's not like some other team that's going to put in a player that has 6 points per game compared to 16. It'll probably be like 13 compared to 16.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coates.
I was just going to say, the nice thing I think you can actually do to work around this is you just have a plethora of good wide receivers, man. I think you can try to trade some of them and either just try to get a low-end QB or maybe just try to get that running back, depending on who you want to trade. Because, I mean, you have like 3 or 4 good young wide receivers, and then you have like vets right there like Allen Robinson and Brandon Cooks that you can still maybe not Cooks as much, but Robinson you can sure depend on still right now. So it seems like you have a ton of wide receivers and a couple positional needs. And I think it could just take reallocating your team a little bit if you want to take the next step.
I agree. Like theoretically, if you want to trade like a T. Higgins for Kirk Cousins, I don't know if or let's even say Stafford. To me, that's like a relatively even trade, which I don't even know who has Stafford, but
Matt Trujillo does.
So if he needs a receiver more than a quarterback, I could see him doing that. Just something similar to that. I think you could pretty easily get a quarterback that's a veteran that's not elite.
All right. So talking about my team is going to be with a question. Pick 109. In this hypothetical world, somehow Trey Lance and Najee Harris are available, which I could see that in like some weird order where like all the good receivers get drafted, the top 3 quarterbacks get drafted, and then Etienne gets drafted and Pitts gets drafted. Like I'm just for a hypothetical case.
Yeah.
Am I selecting Trey Lance or am I selecting Najee Harris?
I think you're selecting Najee Harris, in my opinion. I think Trey Lance is a fine pick as well, but I don't think he fits your team. To me, there's no guarantee Trey Lance is going to come out and be a starter right away at year one. To me, I mean, he's still marked as either the third or fourth best QB, which means he has potential. He could be, but Jordan Love, which don't get me wrong, Trey Lance isn't as low as Jordan Love. I get this, but Jordan Love was taken in the first round as the number 4 overall QB, I guess. And I mean, he's going to be sitting for how many years now? To me, Najee Harris, exactly you're going to get him as a starter right away. I think he can add a huge boost to your team. I think now with Rojo and Leonard Fournette as like running back depth, I think that helps out a ton. I think he'll be successful. Some people say he's the best running back in the class, even over ETN. So that's what I would do, but that's just my personal opinion.
I agree. To me, it's not even close. I literally wouldn't draft Trey Lance ever if I were you. Maybe if you felt at 209, I'm guessing you still have your second, but I don't know for sure. I don't think he adds anything to your team other than pure value. I would much rather just trade the pick for someone or draft a running back. But that's what I would do. I think when he's going to be good, your team isn't going to be good, so it doesn't really make sense to me.
So if that was Fields or Wilson, does that conversation change instead of Lance because of his present value?
No, I would still prefer to trade. If you can get fair value for Fields or Wilson at roughly like the QB 12 through 15, which I'm guessing they'll end up at in Dynasty, then I would just trade.
Yeah, Fields is interesting to bring that up. Wilson to me doesn't make a difference whatsoever. Fields is debatable, but I think there's a lot of ways you can maneuver it, because then to me it's like, yeah, you can take Fields. But then I think you still at the end of the day still need to just try to make that trade for a running back then with your wide receivers. So somewhere you're going to have to trade something, in my opinion. Whereas I kind of agree with what Sam's saying, and you could just select, if we just got Najee Harris there, there is still a chance if Big Ben does play, you don't have a quarterback 2 issue. Yeah.
So essentially it boils down to the positional scarcity of the running back position.
Yep. And I should say, unless you like really, really believe in a quarterback you're getting, like he's going to be a locked and loaded top 10 QB going forward, that's just pure value you can't pass up. But assuming you don't think that about Trey Lance, then I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I would. Let me put it this way. I would love to have that option. I don't think that's going to be the option.
I think Trey Lance might fall to that just because like he probably will be the 4th QB off the board, 3rd or 4th. And then, like, I don't think Najee Harris will fall that far, though. But
yeah, I don't think so either. I'm going to get fucking stuck with Pitts or a wide receiver. And that's going to be, I'm going to hate my life.
I truly believe you're going to get stuck with a wide receiver. I honestly, like, almost 100%. Not 100%. That's not true.
Fucking BPA. Let's go.
To be fair, the Lions are drafting Pitts anyway, so.
Just so they can plug him in at quarterback.
It's like the Tampa Bay running backs all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
So which one turns out to be Aaron Hernandez?
Ooh.
Oh, too soon?
Hopefully not Hawkinson. Yeah, I think there's a very real possibility this is the year I trade a pick. Cool. Well, does anyone want to volunteer to put me to sleep? Because I'm not going to just fucking pop a Xanax and put myself to sleep.
It's all right, Tom. I put you to sleep last season. I can do it again. Good night, Tom. It was a great season. You'll come back next year.
Good night, sweet prince.
All right, Cody. So me and you the rest of the podcast?
Yeah.
Whoa, fuck. I just had the worst nightmare that I lost to Sam in the 3rd round game. Oh, shit. That wasn't a nightmare. That was reality. All right. Well, moving on. I'm sleepy. I'm tired. Yep. I am now a reborn, awake Tom. That's a loser.
Ready for the 2021 year?
Ready for the 2021 year, which Obi is going to really try to go for 2021 as well, since his draft capital, as an interesting segue, is not as strong as some of the other teams that are competitive, but it's not terrible. He just doesn't have his first rounder, which is kind of a big bummer. But that's not too relevant because we want to give him some recapping. So let's switch it up this time, and let's start with Sam.
All right, I'll go over his scores quick just to remind everyone. He lost the semifinal game by about 30, 171 to 142. So he didn't really have a great showing. 4th out of 4 teams in the playoffs. And then, like we mentioned before, he just barely beat Utah in the third place game. Oh, for his team overall, I'd say it's in a pretty rough position. To me, this was the last year he should be competing. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily sell his whole team right now, but if he could get good value, I would try to get picks. I don't think he really has a shot this year or going forward, and I think his team is very old. So I would just focus on honestly shooting for a 2 to 3 year rebuild.
Yeah, I agree with that fully. I think to me the best that he can probably do, not the best, but reasonably the best that he'll do is maybe sneak in at like the number 6 spot or number 5 with a wild card, but I don't even believe in that really. Because I don't think he's winning the division anymore. I think it's literally just Adam after this year. His running backs to me start to fall off heavily. Who knows if Myles Gaskins is going to give him the kind of year that he gave him again this last year? I think Myles Gaskins is super risky. Melvin Gordon to me is like okay, but again, it's just like I feel like he's a guy that to me can fall off this earth at like any given moment, like just dead. And he really doesn't have a lot of guys beyond that. I mean, Todd Gurley's another guy. It's like, when are these guys going to fully be done, or are they almost already done? And then wide receivers is kind of the exact same way. It's like AJ Green. I think AJ Green's a free agent this year, if I'm not mistaken, and that he might be moving on from Cincinnati. And then T.Y. Hilton. I know Carson Wentz is going to be there, but how well is he going to perform? Is he even going to be the number 1 guy? Tom was talking about this last year or throughout this whole entire year. Is T.Y. Hilton the number 1 guy still on that team? I think there's too many question marks around the board with this team. There's, a little bit of capital in his draft picks, but I think he could really make a really quick rebuild, and start building his team around Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin is his best asset, in my opinion, by far. And I think he can start building up a quick rebuild around that player, in my
opinion. Yeah, it's funny because I'm about to preach something that I don't actually follow. So I'm being hypocritical here. But in Dynasty, there are only so many windows. Like there are always like the critical windows for like when's the best time for a team to rebuild? When's the best time for a team to really go for it? And like if to me, this is the perfect time to like you got to put in the work like right now. Like, all right, fuck. It's like you got to wait. You got to set an alarm every day and be like, shit, I got to think about trading my team away. And then like just do it. Because I agree with both your assessments. I don't necessarily think he's in a real like top 3 position anymore, like foreseeably, even going into next year. So it's unfortunate for him. But he still has players that are like at a cusp where you can still get reasonable value. That in 2022, some of those players are not going to even have value. So,
yeah, I think Rodgers is the guy you need to trade right now. Yep. Right now. Like you should have traded him yesterday. Like yeah. he should be gone off your team immediately. Like for Jake.
I completely agree. I mean, he still has Baker Mayfield, and like you mentioned, he still has McLaurin. So he's got a couple pieces to build around, but overall, it's pretty old, pretty washed up for the most part.
Go ahead, Coach.
Oh, I don't have anything. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that his team is one of the few teams that based on my preseason evaluation, honestly, this was like, it almost seemed like we were looking into a crystal ball. Like, this is almost exactly what I thought would happen to his team this year. He would come in like the top 4, and then we would be talking about how, oh shit, his team isn't that great, but he still ends up in the top 4. And then we're like, how did that happen? Oh yeah. Well, he has a lot of like, not has-beens, but players that have receded in value. And now here we are. That's the end of the year. He finished top 4. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy. More than any other team, we were kind of spot on.
Yeah.
And
he scrapped it out.
Yeah.
He did. So.
But yeah, congrats to him on a third place finish, even if it's his last place for a few years here. Maybe he'll surprise us again this year, though. Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely not with a out of the realm of possibility for sure with this team. If some of the guys don't fall off that we think are going to fall off, he's right back in there.
Yeah. So as far as like a building block, like if I'm him am I between like his quarterbacks? Like, are we fine with that situation with being able to like start Baker and Gordon and Rodgers next year if he had to, and having Trubisky as backup?
Like, do I think his quarterbacks are good then?
Yes.
What do you mean? Yeah. I think next year's quarterbacks will be fine. I don't think that's the issue with this team whatsoever.
It's the rest of it.
I think it's the running back specifically.
And receivers.
And tight end.
Yeah, and tight end. But everything but his quarterbacks for win now. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, the wide receivers are debatably still could be kind of okay to me, just because McLaurin is the top guy there. He's not, and then if he gets a hit after there, he could still, but I see what you're saying. They're still old.
He has a couple backups at both running back and wide receiver, where if basically all of his running backs are like 25, 26, and most of his receivers are like 29 or 30. If none of them decrease in value, which is just extremely unlikely, then his team actually could be decent again this year, and maybe he could rival Adam. But even best case scenario, I don't think he's a top 3 team behind me, Tom, and Trujillo. And that's literally best case scenario. Worst case scenario is he tries to go all in, and he's in Fowler's position now next year. So
I agree.
Yeah, well put. Well, Obi, you did it. You got to third place. You even though you got snubbed a couple of years ago, the rule, the Obi rule, didn't come into play for you this year. But it's still nice to have your memorial, and I think you kind of got what you wanted. Like, you don't mind coming in third. I know you wanted to win, but I don't think you were thinking you were going to be able to beat Sam. So I don't know. I think we can put him to sleep pretty happy, right? Like, he's a happy little boy.
Hey,
Kyrie might be happy with this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just snoozing in his little winter wonderland down there.
Oh my God. Yeah. Real talk here, has anyone talked to him? Is he like dead?
Yeah. We talked to him last week. Yeah. Seems like he's doing okay. He said they had electricity for most of the week. So
he wasn't like majorly hit by it.
I mean, I think it was like really cold, but I don't think they had any pipes burst or anything in his apartment building. So
he was losing power here and there, but
yep.
Nothing.
So how does a cat survive if he can't watch Netflix in a cold apartment?
It hibernates. It just sleeps.
He watches on his phone.
Underneath the covers. That's right.
TV shuts off, doesn't even flinch, whips out the phone.
He's got battery packs for days.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to that. Good night, little Obi. So now we get to the truly elite teams this year that really had a great, fantastic season. And like, in my opinion, this is where we talk about between Trujillo and Sam. We talk about the teams that are like, oh yeah, these are some solid ass teams. Like, this is the dynasty pinnacle for the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football team or league. So Sam, what happened to Trujillo this year in the playoffs?
Yeah, so semifinals, like I mentioned, he beat Obi about 170 to about 140. So pretty decent showing from him, nothing too crazy. Championship, he actually got 375 over 2 weeks. So that's a really good showing. Is that averaging almost 190 per week? So couldn't quite pull it out, but still had a really good couple of weeks there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just take us right into, I mean, what do you think about how does the season go?
Really well overall. I mean, he's got pretty good depth. He has absolutely no holes in his entire lineup. Pretty solid starters everywhere. I don't know. I really have no complaints for his team. I think honestly, in a lot of leagues, this would be the best team by quite a bit.
Yeah. Cody.
I completely agree. I mean, he what he did though, if you look at his draft picks too, is he actually sold everybody. He doesn't reasonably. He has a second rounder this year, but other than that, he doesn't have draft picks until 2023.
Holy shit.
To me, this is what you see with his team right now is kind of what you get. I know he's trying to trade that last second round that he has maybe to make it a little bit better, but this is to me a guy that understands his team, knows what he's going for, and he's, in my argument, I mean, he is the closest team for sure to beating Sam, without a doubt in my mind, personally. I think he is stacked everywhere. And I think, even when he was kind of faltering a little bit this year, Nick Chubb was hurt. Austin Eckler was hurt. He had injuries. But when he's got a healthy team, there's just a lot there. Maybe you could make the argument for him that he maybe needs to get – he can maybe want a little bit more reliable of a number one wide receiver. I like DJ Moore a lot, don't get me wrong, and I like Amari Cooper. To me, he has a lot of like low wide receiver ones. But but either way, they're super nice to have right now, and I think his team's good. And then Darren Waller to me is just he's a stud. He's so good.
I will go on the record to say that I think Cooper Kupp with Matt Stafford is a wide receiver one, pretty undoubtedly.
Depends on if it's his favorite wide receiver, if it's Robert Woods.
Yeah, I mean, I own Robert Woods, so I'm a truther, but I think Robert Woods is a lot better than Cooper Kupp, personally.
Don't you think this is a situation that they could both be wide receiver ones, though?
They could, but I'll never bet on that. I mean, yeah. I think they're both locked and loaded top 20 receivers. I just don't know if they'll both be wide receiver ones. Yeah. I think it's a great chance at least one of them will be, though.
Yeah. Yeah, just with that offense and how they're going to, in my opinion, they're going to do even more to buff that offense up.
Yeah. Where did Kupp end this year, by the way? Could you click on him? Okay,
30,
so 20
or 26, yeah.
26, that's a little lower than I thought. I think Woods ended at like 13, so already a borderline wide receiver one. But yeah, I feel like he goes up to like 16 or 17, and Woods goes up to like 10.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with their offense too. I mean, like historically with Stafford, generally, I get it's the Lions, and they didn't really. Well, that's kind of what my point is. They've never really been able to support two wide receiver ones, even on the Lions, in a pass-heavy offense with Stafford. And Stafford, to me, is a very good quarterback at actually distributing the ball around to kind of everybody.
Yeah, it's hard to – I don't remember. There was the 1 year with Johnson and Tate. I think that they might have both been damn close. I mean, obviously Johnson finished one that year. I'm pretty sure Tate was like top 15 just because of PPR. But
even looking at it with like a Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay that next year, it's like Marvin Jones has been good. Don't get me wrong, but he's never been a wide receiver one.
Yeah,
I think Kupp and Woods are both a lot better than Marvin Jones too, and I just think overall the offense will be a lot better under McVay than whatever Stafford ever had on the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I was just thinking about how much I think they'll run the football more than Detroit still with Cam Akers too. And just using him in the offense rather than how Detroit doesn't really use at the time with Stafford as Heights never really used running backs. But that's
good. You think they're just going ground and pound? I feel like they're going to.
No. I think it'll be a balanced attack.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say it's by far the most interesting team offensively going into next year. Like, my God, there's going to be so much fluctuation in how those players are valued because you've got the two running backs and Cam Akers and Henderson, and then you've got the two main receivers like you talked about in Woods and Kupp, and then like it's Higbee, right? Does Higbee even have like extended value with Stafford now?
Don't they have Everett too? Or am I thinking of it?
Yeah, you're right.
Yep,
It's
they have
another decent tight end.
And then it's even the variable of Stafford. Like, does he actually elevate that team? So it's like, holy shit, it's going to be so fun to see how that shakes out fantasy-wise.
I just can't imagine they paid what they paid for him and they don't just like use him a ton. But it's gonna be really fun to watch. I'm excited.
I agree. I guess I've been trying to think of a good like parting topic to talk about with Trujillo's team, but I can't think of one because we already talked about him in his own segment when he was a guest on our podcast, to be fair. Mm-hmm. So we got a lot of that out then. So do you have any other parting thoughts about his team?
I mean, I guess question for you guys. Do you guys have any recommendations? What would you do? What would you guys do right now? Trade 4 picks, trade away your remaining picks, consolidate assets, stay put?
I think what he's doing right now is exactly the only thing you can do. You put the 2021 second on the board. I think you got to do that. I wouldn't want to trade anything past that. I think, and then he has, in my opinion, he has a really good team. I think it's a hold. I think it's take your titles. Don't try to, or not your titles, but try to take, your high play. Because to me, he seems like he could actually be a perennial. Either he could maybe beat you next year, Sam, or he could just take second again. I think taking second again is very realistic for him.
We've talked about the variance too, right? If he gets to a championship, anything can happen.
Right, I agree. Or if you somehow get knocked off early or just anything, I completely agree with those. So to me, it's keep your team, let it ride. OBJ will be back and healthy again too. Maybe Henry Ruggs takes another step. He's got development players still. So
Well,
J.K. Dobbins could take another step.
It's funny you say that because I actually think that's what I do if I'm him. I bunch the 2021 second and Henry Ruggs as a package to trade up for a win now player. I think Henry Ruggs is still, in my eyes, like a pseudo dart throw. So I take that variance going into next year with the 2021 second, and I think trading to a young team, you could get another starter for him or like an upgrade somewhere, like kind of what Sam did with running backs, right? Where Sam just had 3 running backs that were interchangeable so that when McCaffrey did get injured, obviously he also had the handcuffs, a bad example, but he was able
But I
to
mean,
plug
like
in.
Mike Davis wasn't that good for most
Yeah,
of the
that's
season,
true.
right? So, yeah, no, I actually agree with you, Tom. I would even consider packaging J.K. Dobbins, even though I'm a huge fan of him. If you can sell J.K. Dobbins and that second and get like a top tier win now running back.
Yep.
Honestly, like a Saquon Barkley, to me that wouldn't be. I think I would lean the Saquon Barkley side of that thing. But to me, that would be something I would be looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
The only reason because I thought about that too, I wouldn't consider Dobbins because he isn't like he is not only did he already kind of hit, but he's going to only increase in value next year. In theory, right? There's the pretty big assumption that they're going to Edwards and what's his name are both in Ingram are both free agents, right? So,
Sure. Yeah. If you're going on the assumption that he's going to like for sure, or at least 75 to 80% increase in value, then yeah, definitely hold. But based on his current value at like, I think he's like RB10 or something, you could package him as second and get like, I'm obviously not going to sell, but like a Dalvin Cook type player who is like higher level, but a little older to someone that's trying to rebuild, something like that.
I see that point. The options are limitless, and Trujillo has done an awesome job with this team.
Yeah. He's got a great
Yeah,
team.
it's very good.
So he's the second happiest. So someone else put him to sleep. Cody, you haven't done it yet. Cody,
All right. I would say, for him, we got him all nice and tucked in. He's got his like little hot cocoa in his hand, little Matcherio cocoa, and he's just looking at him. We're reading him a bedtime story, and we're letting him know first is the worst, second is the best, and he just falls right asleep perfectly. And then he's just like, I can't wait for the next season when I'm back in the playoffs.
Yeah. I really do think that Trujillo is the one. He has an untainted second place, unlike the person we're about to talk to. That had clear collusion throughout the years with trading.
Yeah, with everyone in the league.
Yes, that's what we call joint collusion. Look it up, nerd.
It's everyone against him.
Look it up, idiot.
Good night, Trujillo, and good morning, Sam, the champion. Well, that's the end of the podcast. Good talking to you guys.
That was fun.
That was fun. Nah, just kidding. Sam, what the fuck happened to you in the fucking playoffs?
Well, I started Corey Davis every week, so that was kind of weird, but I don't know. Alvin Kamara happened, I guess. I think that can basically sum it up. He scored a lot of touchdowns. Yeah, we already went over the matchups, but yeah, he was definitely the MVP.
Yeah,
nice 60-point week.
Yeah, the biggest championship performance ever.
Yeah, and that kind of puts you over the edge too. Like if he just has an average 20-point week, or I guess 25-point week.
I mean, I think I won by like 35. Yeah. So yeah, if he would have had even an above average week, I would have lost. So yep.
Crazy. Yeah, that is the true difference. It's he basically had like a Tyreek Hill week, not as good as Tyreek Hill, but similar. It's crazy that it does kind of feel like it coming onto him.
Yeah, no, he had a great game. I think the rest of my players did okay. I guess I don't remember everyone, but I know that Mahomes and Kelsey had one bad game. I don't remember if it was against Utah or the first week of the championship, but okay, he didn't have any bad games. I guess the week 16 was probably his second lowest week of the year at 19.2, but can't really complain too much about that.
And Kelsey didn't.
Never
either.
mind. Nope. They're just really, really good. Okay, never mind.
So Cody, let's take this, and then we can let Sam end on it.
Yeah.
What's up with Sam this year? Like, what happened?
I mean, he went all in, and then he had a really good team already before he went all in, and then he had a really, really good team after he went all in. Like, it's so sad. It's just there is a part of me. I know we talk about windows, and I get that. There is a part of me that's like, holy fuck. I think Sam has a possibility of being a champion for 4 straight years. That's how good. That's how good I think your team is. I think you have you have Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins. You have Travis Kelce.
They're gonna be like 33
in 4 years. That's
give or take.
They'll be fine. No. DeAndre Hopkins will be he'll be 30, 31 if you win 4 straight years.
He's only 27 right now.
He is 28, but I'm taking into account the fact you've already won 1 championship.
Okay, fair.
And then Michael Thomas, he's a spry little chicken too. He's 27, 31 or 30. I'm just saying. I don't know. We'll see. Your running backs will probably expire before then.
I expire like fucking milk.
Yeah, but I don't know, man.
You've
got a good team. My fear, and this is the only fear I have for your team, Sam, when I say this too, is because I just know you. I know the way you work. As soon as these players, it's like it's kind of like the Mike Trout thing we were talking about, right? Where it's like, this is the perfect time to trade them because you can still get your peak value. You're going to do it. I know you. You're going to do it. You're going to do it successfully. And then you're going to keep that train rolling. And the train's never going to stop rolling. It's going to roll every single year. I know this. And I'm just waiting to see when it happens because I know it's coming.
So you mean I'm going to do what you just did?
Exactly. Except when you do it, you won't rebuild. You're going to still have a good team. I think you'll be like, oh, let me trade Alvin Kamara like in 2 years. Let me get like, I don't know, some young running back like J.K. Dobbins or something else. And then it's like, oh, Dobbins is so good this year. He's better than Kamara.
I hate to interrupt you to jack you off, Cody, but I just remembered that your team was the team that you drafted when you were dying in the fucking hospital, and you drafted 2 defensive linemen.
Yep. Literally got Khalil Mack and J.J. Watt.
I wonder you won.
Yeah. First year
All
without
right,
IDP, I don't win.
I'm gonna say my piece about Sam's team. I think the line is not 4. I think that could happen, but I think a more realistic line is 3, which is sad that that's still even a line, just because of the variability of fantasy football. Like 4, if he had all players sub 25, then yeah, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like if there's all the same names at a younger age, I'd be like, yes. But a lot of these players have already had a lot of service time, so I don't know about 4. My second adage, I guess, is like, I keep looking at this team and I'm just fucking sad it has Tua. That's what pisses me off. Like every other player, I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. And then I'm like, how the fuck is Tua in there? Like, I am just, and we already talked about this a little bit when the trade happened, but it's the one player that I'm like, it's kind of like when we talk about baseball and like prospects. Like good teams shouldn't necessarily be able to have all these good prospects. I'm like, fuck, how did this happen? I hate that.
I do actually remember the trade or no?
I do, yes.
Okay. So I gave up my first for it. I mean, plus a lot, but.
Understood. I'm just high on Tua, and yeah, I guess that is the other talking point, right? Like, I guess looking forward, like at least to get this team, you don't really have draft capital at all. Like, you don't really have meaningful draft capital until 2023. So if there is one reason for me not to want to call you Hitler at the start of every podcast, it's that. So there was no anger in that, I promise.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I just think the team's so good. I think it just will stay good, and I think the Tua to me is a prime example of trades I think you'll be able to make, just with your team. I mean, you in that trade, yeah, I get it. You gave up a first. You gave up like Drew Brees to Mike Reed. what the fuck does Drew Brees mean to Mike Reed?
He flipped,
Like,
he flipped him. It's just value.
Yeah, I forget who he
literally
flipped
within
him
like
for.
an hour he flipped him.
Yeah, that's true. But
And we had a whole podcast on that too.
to me, it's like more importantly, what it is why was he getting rid of Tua? That was mostly the way I felt about it.
He just wanted picks. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I guess. I get. I'm not saying. I'm sure he had his reasonings behind it. I'm just saying from a macro perspective, I don't understand why he was doing that.
Sure.
Seems fair. Like a very roundabout way to get exactly the same thing that you want.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm not a Tua believer either, so it's not that as egregious to me. But
all right, this is how we're going to end the segment talking about Sam. Cody and I are going to alternate with each of Sam's players, and we're going to come up with the most likely scenario that each of these players fucking sucks in 2021. Okay. I'm going to start with Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes looked really bad in the Super Bowl. Like the Buccaneers solved him. So Pat Mahomes is going to be solved going into 2021, and he's going to end up as a QB2. All right, Cody, go with Alvin Kamara.
All right, Alvin Kamara. He's not able to get the pressure off from Drew Brees retiring, and therefore he's not able to get all this free holes, or their offense just kind of crumbles a little bit. He turns into an RB2.
Dalvin Cook. He definitely had some injury concerns last year for about 2 games with Madison coming in. That intensifies completely. He goes full McCaffrey mode and is dust. And Dalvin Cook is dust is the new hashtag 2021.
Corey Davis is Corey Davis. Next.
I was gonna say, why are we talking about Corey Davis?
Because he was in for your championship.
Terrible. God, so bad.
Oh, fuck. This one's the hardest one. The rest of them seemed easy. I already blamed one on injury.
I know mine.
This is the second hardest one.
Cody, you go with yours then.
All right. My most likely scenario is he's partying at a nightclub sometime over the summer, accidentally gets in with the wrong people, commits a crime, gets suspended for the year. He doesn't play.
Yeah, but he seems like a pretty stand-up guy.
Oh, I'm sure he is. This is literally the only situation I can see where he isn't good.
Or somehow Kyler gets injured, or
Kyler can't throw.
Yeah, because the quarterbacks for him have mattered before.
Dude, I don't know what the scenario is other than injury. The other players I could actually see, because he hasn't really had injury history, though. That's the problem. That's why I was able to kind of point to
suspension. That's why I always go back to suspension.
That man will die on my team.
All right, that was the hardest one by far. I'll take Woods.
Yeah.
This is an easy one.
You mean Bobby Trees?
Bobby Trees. Fuck yeah, that's great. Oh. Woods has a really easy one to point to, and we kind of alluded to it earlier. What if Cooper Kupp is the number one answer there, and then Stafford starts throwing to his tight end, which did happen in Detroit. There was some years where he leaned on tight end and Ebron and Pettigrew before that. And Woods does somehow not play like the wide receiver 1, and he becomes like a wide receiver 2, or even drops down to like wide receiver 3, and something happens. That is a possibility for this.
That's actually a very reasonable take.
What do you mean? I thought the other ones were pretty reasonable.
Yeah, like DeAndre Hopkins partying in a nightclub and getting suspended the entire season. I want to hear this one.
All right,
I'll take this one. So this is actually a lot in the same vein of what you were talking about, Tom. Is Patrick Mahomes is running for his life the entire season because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers figured out how to defend against him. Travis Kelce literally gets put as another blocker because they need to be able to defend all the people that are rushing him. He just doesn't go out for as many passes, and therefore it doesn't get utilized as well. Also, unicorns are real.
So Travis Kelce's positional availability next year will no longer be tight end. It'll just be offensive tackle.
Pretty much.
I like that. I think that was like the next hardest after Hopkins.
You could take Derrick Henry.
You think Hopkins was harder than Kelce? He has 5 consecutive years of being the number 1 tight end.
Yeah, but tight end, he is at a kind of critical age now, like 32, going into next year.
I would still bet it. That's actually an interesting question. Next year, would you take him or the field to be the number 1 tight end? Most experts I've read would take him, but it's very close.
Yeah,
with Kittle being healthy, I think I would take the field. But
I agree. I
I
think
get
I
it.
think it's like Kittle, Waller, or Hawkinson pass him basically.
Yeah,
Hawkinson-
but I get it. It's
Hawkinson's
close.
an interesting one only because of the Goff factor. Like, what if Goff just fucking loves him? He
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah, for sure.
um,
He's talented too, obviously.
right, exactly. He's got the talent to do it.
Take the Derrick Henry one.
All right, Derrick Henry. This is actually compelling too. This is because there have been people before me writing articles about this, how this is actually like the statistical age next year where he starts to regress for running backs because it's 27. So now he's going to be 28, which is the year that the decline. And we talk about carry load. I mean, if there's a year to sell Henry, it actually is now in theory. So this isn't a terrible nightmare story for him. Like he could actually just completely fall off next year.
That all implies that he's like a human being, which from what I've seen, that's not correct.
Yeah.
It's actually an interesting fact I heard the other day on the radio. Do you guys know Derrick Henry during 2020 had as many 200-yard, he had 3 200-yard games. There's only 2 other running backs in history to have that in their entire career. 3 200-yard games. Yeah, I thought that was pretty insane.
How many of those were in sub 30-degree weather while he was carrying the ball in his left hand?
Ooh, that's a good question. I should look that up.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't feel like my confidence level on that is like not as bad as some of the other ones. Like I still think it could happen next year.
Oh, I think every running back I have will never appreciate in value. It's literally impossible. They'll all go down every single year.
Mhm.
All right, Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson actually, to me, does present a lot of issues. He did kind of struggle towards, like, not struggle like that bad, but he wasn't. I know he finished number 6, but he really wasn't that top 10 QB that he started off as, because he started off on fire. And then, especially in the playoffs against the Rams, he did not look that good either. I don't actually think he'll be bad next year by any means, but 32. You have to imagine the older he gets, the mobility is going to decrease a little bit too. And he doesn't play with the best offensive line. He does take a lot of sacks still, even for being a mobile quarterback. I don't know. Maybe that just gets to him, or maybe an injury happens from him, trying to run around and do too much. And, Lockett gets another year older. And I get it. DK's great. DK's excellent. But I think he needs other weapons still.
And he's been kind of being shopped around.
That too.
And it's because he's kind of mini Watsoning right now.
Yeah.
Not about the front office, but about like the team.
Yep.
So there's the nightmare scenario, Sam. Are you getting kind of nervous after all these nightmare scenarios?
Little bugaboos.
I honestly think you guys made a lot of good points. To me, the only mostly risk-free players on my team are Mahomes, Kelsey, and Nuke. Other than that, I think everyone actually does have significant risk, whether it's injuries for running backs or just not being good for, like, Michael Thomas and Robert Woods are both going to switch QBs next year. Who knows what they're going to do? Julio Jones is like 80 at this point.
Yeah. And Ridley
Right.
seems to be taking over the number 1 spot.
Yeah, we don't really have to talk about Julio, and we already covered McCaffrey before, but Cody, give us Michael Thomas. God damn it. All right, are we looking at the nightmare scenario right here?
I think this last year, now that I know he's a head case, I don't want anything to do with Michael Thomas. I don't know. He's not a complete head case, but he definitely had like some diva moments last year that were just like a little bit uncalled for, in my opinion. And I mean, he'll still be a top 20 wide receiver, but
will he
be like?
Let's talk about how he doesn't have Drew Brees either.
He still put up strong numbers even with Teddy Bridgewater. There is a cause for concern. I get what you're saying, but I think the fact that, say, Jameis comes in and starts for that team now, Jameis will make wide receivers good just because he's Jameis. And he's just going to keep, in my opinion, just throw the ball down the field. But we'll see.
Those numbers are not good, by the way. Those are not solid numbers at all that he put up.
This year?
Yeah.
I'm talking about when he played last year. Am I thinking last year when he played without Drew Brees? Drew Brees was hurt last year, and he put up.
Oh, you're talking about when he played at Teddy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm talking about this year when he came back and he's playing with, I think, Hill for a little bit and Brees for a little bit, and he didn't really put up good numbers.
Brees also wasn't good this year, by the way. So I'm willing to, like, the fact that he lost Breeze to me, especially, I think he already lost Breeze like 2 years ago, in my opinion. But
And that's kind of my point. We saw what happened. Like it
well, he was
wasn't.
injured a bunch too. I mean, like if he would have put up these stats, they're not good stats, but I still maybe he wouldn't have been top 20. He would have been close though.
Cody, this is about nightmare scenarios, and we're talking about you're trying to deflect 3 nightmare scenarios by saying no, he's going to overcome it.
Oh no, nightmare
This
scenario.
is like the riskiest player on Sam's team.
Oh, for sure. I 100% agree. Sorry, I went the opposite. I felt bad. I didn't want to pile on.
Fuck you for feeling bad for this little conniving weasel.
That's me. So conniving. Cody,
Yeah,
Cody doesn't care. He made my team what it is.
Yeah, this is what I wanted.
All right. Let's end on the one player that I guess is potentially relevant for Sam next year is Tua. Cody, I'll let you take this one since you don't like Tua.
Nightmare scenario.
Yep.
He literally doesn't proceed at all. He just kind of stays being that kind of boring pocket passer that I've seen. That guy, he does not have air yards on any of his throws either. He throws really short. That's kind of alarming to me. I don't really like quarterbacks that don't generally have any air yards. To me, they're very easy to defend against, especially the short game. So I guess I don't see him being a complete bust, but I could see him being equivalent to kind of like the bad version of, or not bad, but like the middling version of Jared Goff. And it's like, okay, but it's not like that. It doesn't matter that much.
Okay. All right.
Oh, what am I supposed to say? Nightmare scenarios now?
No. Real take brought to you by Cody Holla. Okay. Well, Sam, I guess you kind of intersperse your own thoughts on your team. So any last thought though?
It's pretty good. Someone should try to beat me once in a while.
Holy
Barber's done a good job. Actually, you guys could learn a thing or two from him.
Yeah, come back to me when you have another one.
I will.
Yeah, idiot.
You might.
I think I'll win one more. I put the over under at 1, maybe 1.5. I think that's about it, but could be wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong.
I put the over under at 2.5.
I'll take the under.
Within the next 3 years.
Sure, I'll bet you $20. I'll take the under if you want it.
That just means I have to have 3. That wouldn't work.
That I get 3 championships in the next 3 years.
Right, I'm not making the bet. That's why I said 2.5.
Yeah. So if I win 3 times, I give you $20.
And if you win, how much do I give you?
$20.
So the line's at 3 then. The line isn't actually like at 2.5.
No, because if the line's 3, then if I get 3, it's a push.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think you'll win 2.5.
Okay.
I'm saying
Holy shit. I'm listening to the worst fucking ear rape.
Am I not making sense, Tom? Am I just talking?
No, I get what you're
gibberish here?
saying, Sam, but I think you'll win 2.5, not 3.
That doesn't make sense.
It can make any kind of sense I want it to make.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and put Sam to sleep right now. And this is how I'm putting Sam to sleep.
Ooh, yes. This is my bedtime music.
Is this representing Tom's anger?
I think so. I think all of his hatred.
What an Oh god, we're still going.
Yep, we're still putting Sam to sleep, Sam.
Oh my god.
You had a great year. Oh, is it super loud?
Oh god, everybody's just gonna be like, it's so loud.
I turned it down so much I can barely hear you guys. I can only hear the music.
Yeah, that was so loud. Now I don't hear anything.
I was just trying to get to one part. There it is. That's how I'm putting you to sleep.
That was all we wanted out of that. You just wake up. Holy cow.
All right, not my best bit.
I liked it. That's the new thing. Anytime
boy.
someone wins a championship, we play that song.
Yeah, we need a soundboard desperately.
That's a great point. I have a soundboard, but I don't know how to use it.
Perfect. That'll do.
Huh. Well, yep. Good night, Sam.
Yep.
You won. Until next year. So yeah, I think that's the podcast for this the ending podcast. Because I don't think there's really much else to talk about. We put everyone to rest, and really looking forward. We'll have a lot to talk about with the draft, with respect to the draft, and then we'll have a lot to talk about in about 4 months when we're talking about preseason, or I guess 6 months now. So yeah. Any other thoughts about the 2020 season, boys?
No, I think maybe we could just before we go here, and just to extend out a little bit, just kind of a preview to the owners meeting is there rules that we think we should be introducing? Because I know we kind of put that off from actually talking about it in the season, and more specifically, especially on leaning in from Sam's thing, is Empire rule, and if we actually think, especially after we did it with fantasy baseball, if we think we should do that in a more of a similar way.
Similar to what we did in fantasy baseball.
Yep.
I would, yeah. I mean, personally, after we brainstormed that, that's how I moving forward would view an empire, which I guess, to explain if anyone's actually listening to the podcast, we've talked about empire before as being like a pot that builds up and then we just do a redraft. But I like the idea of potentially doing like some sort of compensation instead.
I agree. I actually really, really like the idea we came up with for baseball. I don't know how we could do that reasonably in football, but I would love to hear opportunities, because I think that was a better solution than just everyone putting in money and then redrafting. Because I think people get attached to their teams and don't really want to redraft. So kind of
in theory, couldn't you just do keepers? You just do like 7 keepers in football, or 5 keepers in football, and then you just get rid of 2 players, something like that.
So only 2 teams get players from me, or what? Like lowest 2
something
teams?
like that, or 3, depending on, and then they could be exponential again.
I think what it would be for me is actually like, that is when we do a complete, it wouldn't just be compensation to the winner of the empire. I think that's when we do a compensation, like almost like an overhaul for everyone. So like the first team would be able to keep a player, and then someone would draft from it. And then the second team would keep 3 players. Third team would keep 5 players. So basically like a way to try to even the playing field for everyone, almost all in one year.
But then, so each team only gets 1 player stolen from them, or what?
In that hypothetical, I'm sure we could refine it a bit better. Yeah.
Sure. I guess I think that would be okay. My issue with that is like, I think me losing a player would impact my team less than, let's say, Adam losing a player in most instances, because my team is still going to be elite. But like, that being said, each individual player means a lot more in football than it does in baseball, because you start 8 players compared to like 25 or 30. So I don't know exactly how that works. I think it should only punish the person that triggered the empire rule.
I think it could be fun, by the way, if we wanted to do it like a little bit less severe, even on back-to-back championships, is you start cutting out draft compensation completely.
Yeah.
Like where the winning team just doesn't get their draft picks anymore, and only like bad teams get them, or somehow in that way, in that vein.
That's a good
I don't
idea.
know if it's severe enough, but it could just be a basis to start it, where it's just like, okay, yeah, you can keep winning, but then every year you keep winning, we're just going to take more and more draft picks away from you.
Yeah, I like that too. I just, like, most teams that are going to be in the championship, I would say probably don't even have their draft picks. Like, looking at me and Trujillo's teams, we don't have any meaningful draft picks over the next 2 years anyway.
It's fair.
So I don't know how we would get it done that way either. But
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
definitely interesting.
I do like the idea just to like punish and try to balance the league rather than just reset. I just think that way it's a lot easier to do in baseball to balance that.
I never personally, I wasn't too much of a fan of the redraft as an empire, which is why I've always voted against empire, because if we can find a way to define parameters for this sort of compensation draft or equalization period, like, I'd be fine. Even though in baseball we talked about how we didn't want to gut the player, I actually would be fine with, in football, that is the opposite, where we do just say, all right, Sam, you don't get to keep any players, everyone drafts a player from you. Like, I don't know if that would be just miserable for that one person, but at the same time, it was not miserable for 3 years for that person.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, to me, it should be like balancing the league, which I think is what we did in baseball, not like ruining the league for one like not ruining the league for one person going forward. Because like I don't know, for example, I assume you mean something like uh, every non-playoff team gets to choose one player from the winning team that wins 3 years in a row or something, right? Obviously, they're coming off an elite 3-year stretch. They're never gonna like be in the negative for money or anything if people care about that. But like they're not going to ever be competitive for the next like 4 to 5 years probably because they don't have any draft picks and they don't have any players. There's nothing they can really do to compete, and that's just not really fun for anyone, I don't think.
To me, you could reasonably do like, sorry, I just went on like a different tangent. You could literally do for every single team, you could do like I kind of what Tom was talking about, kind of like the keeper system. But then what you do is with the draft, you just do an auction draft. And then you give the bottom teams more money to actually pick up on it. I get that what you're saying is like, well, you losing a player versus Adam, but if you're like losing your second best player or say your third best player compared to Adam's sixth or seventh best player, I don't think that nerfs him as much as it would nerf you. And it actually does work to balance out the league because it goes in placement. So it doesn't just take the top team. It takes, well, I can see where that could be an issue, though.
I think it's hard to assess overall just because of the way our league currently is, though, too. Because there are definitely different tiers. But.
So, in the energy of not trying to gut, but also help everyone but the team that won, you could also just do a merge of the two ideas and just say, like, all right, the worst team gets to keep 12 players. That team picks one from Sam, but then Sam picks one of the remaining. Then you go to the second to last team. They get to keep 11 players. Picks one from Sam. Sam gets to pick, so that you get to the point where Sam's actually getting something back instead of just losing a player. It's just that you're not getting very much back. Right?
That would still just be like gutting my team, though, right?
I don't know about that because you're still getting something in return. You're just.
I mean, they're the worst team's 13th best player.
Yeah, but by the time you get to the playoff teams, you're getting like a good player in return.
Yeah, but I'm trading like a full championship roster for like players that debatably shouldn't even be on benches for the first like 5 to 6 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which is essentially losing a player for the first couple picks.
I would much rather lose like even 2 players than do that system, which to me 2 players would gut most teams.
Yeah, I think there has to be an element of some keepers for Sam still. Or not Sam, but just Sam, just because that's the most likely scenario I see occurring in the short term. But I think there has to be an element of keepers for Sam because I think like fantasy baseball, if you just get rid of a lot of the top guys, or maybe it's not 5, maybe it's a different arbitrary number, but it's some number where you just have to say, okay, he can protect these players, so you can still have a choice of players you really want to protect. But then again, maybe the bottom 3 teams are just the people who get to choose. Because that way, it literally lowers Sam probably closer to the second best place team, doesn't completely gut him, and then it actually helps to raise the bottom 3 teams for playoff contention.
So, yeah, I know what you're saying. I guess one clarifying point, my opinion is that anytime you have an Empire League rule, it should be to make the league more fun and even for everyone, right?
Yep.
Are we all in agreement, or is it just to punish the top team?
No, no.
I agree.
Okay. So like, what about the idea of like not even including money, but like if someone wins 3 years in a row, their team is clearly dominant, it just like triggers a potential redraft vote where everyone gets to vote if it passes and the winning team doesn't get to vote. So like, let's say you need 8 of 11 teams to vote to redraft. If that passes, we just do a redraft. No money involved or anything, just like rebalance the league rather than just like gutting a team or not nerfing it enough. You know what I mean? It's just so hard to find that balance to me.
I think I think it is a better situation than what we talked about before of what the Empire was, but it still provides a situation of like you're one of 2 votes that votes for keep playing because you're like, I love my draft capital and I love my young players, and then you just have to start over and all your work is for nothing.
That I don't mind what you're saying, Sam, but yeah, I think that was one of the reasons we didn't include in fantasy baseball because we brought up that point against it. Because we could have talked about not having a separate pot, but I know that was a big issue was like, what if people were saying like, what if I build my team to just get to this like victory stage. And then like, yeah, I'm the one who like also gets punished as a result of that because so I get what you're saying. It is a fine
It's better than
thought
the
to have.
initial iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fine thought to have for sure. But yeah, I just think if you could just protect a certain amount of players that we could just all determine together, I don't think it'd be that tough. I mean, because like if you truly remove 3, if you can protect 5 players on your team on a top team, you protect 5 players and then you got the next 3 best players and give them to the bottom. To me, that actually is a perfect way of condensing competition.
My team is really top heavy, but I still think, I mean, it would condense. I think my team would be in the same tier as Tom and Trujillo, but I think I would probably still lean towards my team, to be honest. Like if you're
If you lost, if you can only protect 5 players,
yeah, if my starting lineup is Mahomes, CMC,
yeah,
Dalvin, Kelsey, probably Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins instead of Michael Thomas. You know what I mean? Like I have the best quarterback, the best tight end, in my opinion, the 2 best running backs, but I get if people have Saquon at number 2, so probably the first and the third best running back. Like I just don't. To me, I would still probably lean towards my team, but it would definitely even it out a lot.
yeah. See, and it's funny because I don't know. While I agree, your top team heavy would be heavy. I think because of depth, I actually think the more I play fantasy, I actually do think depth is more important than I give it credit for.
Sure.
Is like I think an injury can just derail your team, and that's
So
why I
then-
would take Matt Trujillo's team. In my
So then on the flip side,
Mhm.
how would you do that? As in, you get your number 1, like those players would enter the rookie draft. So like this year, you could either draft Alvin Kamara or Trevor Lawrence,
could do that. I'm not
because
opposed to that.
otherwise, I think it really benefits the lower teams way too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Because
see
if
what
you
you're
got
saying.
Alvin Kamara and Trevor Lawrence and your 5 other draft picks, you're the best team in the league by far.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I
that's-
think
that's
you'd have
my
to do
only
the
other
comp pick. I agree.
Well, that's my only other concern too, was because of the
People
I,
have
I didn't like how it
or
I just didn't like how it like it only rewards the like why do we draw the line there at the bottom 3 or the bottom 5 or whatever.
I mean, yeah, you could reasonably do the bottom 6 then, and just you'd have to figure that out. But the reason why I just say bottom 3 or bottom, it could be just to me because it's enough. I'm more thinking about what on the top end nerfs that team down rather than the benefits on the bottom, because I think the benefits on the bottom, to me, getting one of these players doesn't take a number 9 team necessarily and make them a top 4 team.
I think it does if you have 6 first-round draft picks, which you do. I think if
Right,
you got
but
if you got Alvin Kamara, like in addition to, you would just be the best.
But we're saying that it's either in your draft pick, you either pick the compensation pick or you pick the draft pick.
Sure. I guess what if you have like 3 of the first 5 picks or something?
Oh, so what if I get like 3 of these guys?
Yep. On top of Kittle and Saquon.
Sure.
I
I'd
don't
have
know.
to look into that.
to me-
I'd have to think about that more.
To me, this system in baseball makes a lot of sense because it's stealing 1, or what do we say, like 4 players out of 30. How big is a roster in baseball? 30?
32.
32. So 4 players out of 32. Comparatively, what would that be like stealing here? Like 2.5 players, 2 players?
Well, technically, our roster size is about the same.
Yeah. I guess how many players matter compared to the players in baseball?
I get it. We have
I mean,
about
12, really.
And this is why I like fantasy baseball more.
I mean, that's
But-
fair. Fantasy baseball is definitely more like statistically significant. I just hate watching baseball and love watching football, so I like football
That's
more.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
This is gonna
I
be
mean,
really
if
hard to
anything,
balance.
we don't need to solve it now. I think it's just a good thing that we can debatably bring up for the rules or the owners meeting. And then, I mean, if there's anything else that I think, there's nothing else I really think we need to change in the league. I just think some sort of establishment of an empire rule is just good to have. I always just err on the side of it's good to have it now and make sure you have it now, because by the time we possibly get there, people are just going to leave the league. And if they know that there's no way out, in my
Sure.
opinion.
And that's fair. And I think the difference between football and baseball too is why I think just the full reset makes more sense in football. It's just like how much shorter the competitive windows are. I think you can get a team, honestly, like similar to Tom's right now, where you're looking at your young players, where like you could be good for 8 years, and it's like,
Mhm.
why play then? Whereas even Cody, you had the longest estimate of my team being 4 years from now, and Tom had 3 years, and I have 2 years.
I would just be. I think anyone. I don't know. I would just be really sad to lose all the players that. But that's just my personal philosophy on Dynasty. I
agree.
love the investment
Mhm.
personally.
I completely agree. I think maybe we go for some, Tom, I really like your idea in baseball where it's like less punishing but happens more often. Where
Right.
like maybe if someone wins 2 years in a row, then they get to like keep 5 players and they only have one player taken from them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if they
I'm
win
fine
again,
with
they get
that.
another player, and they win again, they get another player. So it's like more gradual. They can still have fun, keep the core of their team.
Right.
But like
That's
I mean, if I win
like
4
that.
years in a row, my team's gonna be gutted by that point, if that makes sense.
right. And that's how I would want to balance it. It's just we have to figure out a way to balance that because
Yep.
if only losing one player is gonna not hurt you.
Well,
Or,
that's
sorry,
just all,
I
that's
shouldn't
only
say
after 2 years, though.
no. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say.
Oh.
It's not that it's not going to hurt you. It's like who do we give that one player to? That's the problem.
I think it just enters
It's
the
just the
draft.
comp pick. It's just the
I
draft
see.
pick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like I'm honestly looking at this year's a little bit different with Trevor Lawrence, but like personally, I would take Trevor Lawrence over any of my players that would enter the pool probably. I could see if Cody wanted to take
Oh,
like I wouldn't keep Derrick Henry. Like I could see if Cody wanted to take Henry over T-Law, but that's pretty close to me.
Yep.
Or like Russell Wilson over T-Law, to me that's close as well.
Right. No, yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, that's
So it would probably be the number one overall pick for most of the years, but
yeah.
at least
I would like
relatively
that.
close.
I like
I
that
w-
too. And you could even do a tiered system there where you go one player stolen, then 2 players stolen, something, or like something like that in order just to balance it out, just to keep it going. And then that also helps because kind of what you were saying, what you were fearful of is like if you lost all these picks in 1 year and somebody owns all these draft picks, it all just goes to one player. Whereas like maybe over the course of multiple different years, it actually can be different people.
Yeah,
Rather
exactly.
than the same person. So I think that's a good alternative. I
think what feels good for the whole league and doesn't completely decimate one person is good. Like
right.
overall, we just want it to be fun for everyone, basically. So,
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would say the cutoff would be like 4 keepers then. Just because it seems like a clean way of like saying you get to keep one of each major positional group.
I think that's reasonable.
Yep. Figure that out once we get there, but I think that's fine.
Yeah. That's something that could just be discussed with the whole league. But I think that's a good line. Is like 2 years you lose one player with a certain amount of keepers, and then every year after that you win, you would lose an additional player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could potentially even scale too, but we could discuss that.
Could also have being thrown in there too is draft picks as well, player or draft picks. Not that I think if you have that kind of a team, anybody would choose a draft pick, but
yeah, I see what you're saying. If I had the 101 on my team, you could throw that in the pool instead. Yeah,
right.
I agree. God, if that happens.
yeah. But but again, what I always go back to is that's the point of Empire Rule, because in Empire Rule that does happen, or something leads your team to be that elite. But
sure, yep.
That's the whole thing you're trying to prevent against. But regardless, I just wanted to bring up that subject really quick before we took off.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. The other two I'm going to really put in huge pushes for are getting rid of defense kicker, which I care about a lot. I plugged that last year and we couldn't get it passed. And then the other one I like, but we don't need is I would prefer to change the second overall seed to total points rather than record. So the 2 buys, one is total record, one is total points. So those are the 3 things I'm trying to push through here.
I think I support both those. I do this year. I know I didn't last year with defense and kickers because I knew we had just gotten rid of IDPs, but this year I'm fully on board for it.
Yeah, we already talked about this in a podcast before. I've been ready to get rid of that fucking kicker and defense forever.
I think it's a good year for us. It's the first year we haven't had major changes to the league, so I think it's a good year to get rid of them. But.
Yep, I agree. I like that. Opens up the roster a little bit more too.
Yeah, nerf Sam's team for sure. Fucking Gonzo to the Washington football team and Will Lutz.
They were good.
I know.
They were really good, surprisingly. But
there goes my competitive advantage.
Yeah, it's all right. Fine to get rid of them. But.
Well, I think that's it for the podcast, huh, boys?
Yeah, I think so.
See you all next year.
Yeah, see you all. Bye, guys. Hope you find your draft picks.
Yeah. Hope you find your coffee when you wake up.
Yeah. Nice. Topical.
Thanks.
Oh, man. Well, you listened to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, it was fun. It was a fun ride. Well, we'll be playing fantasy baseball, so we'll talk to you on that flip side.
Yeah, feel free. Let them know, Tom, how they can follow the Fantasy Baseball Podcast.
Oh,
Like
I don't
and
know.
subscribe.
How can they?
Literally just keep your little notification bells open for our YouTube page. We'll be uploading right to there directly. And,
Perfect.
if you've ever been interested in Dynasty Baseball, just give us a listen. Me and Tom are the hosts on that, but we'll try to have a guest appearance pretty much every week. And we're always looking to see what people think about it. And if baseball is something that interests you, it's a really good podcast for that.
Is it?
It's a very mediocre podcast for that.
Is it?
It's a very bad podcast, but we say baseball things.
There we go. It's really only good if you like listening to people that talk.
Yeah. Are the type of people you like to associate with statisticians? If so, baseball might be the sport for you.
But you should still listen to another podcast.
Yeah.
All right. With that, peace.
Latest.
The Football Podcast with Tom, Cody, and Sam.